Do the cash walk, do the cash walk. Hey, I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your collar, twist your wrist, do the cash walk. I'm dropping dollars while you're wishing on a scratch off. My hollow mama list, she just hit the jackpot. I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your collar, twist your wrist, do the cash walk. I'm dropping dollars while you're wishing on a scratch off. My hollow mama list, she just hit the jackpot. I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your
Oh my gosh, we are episode 7, the minor details. Welcome everybody. We have so much to talk about today. I don't even know where to start, Pete. I don't even know where to start. How are you doing today?
Let's go, brother. I'm great. I had one of the best nights of my life last night. I'll tell you guys about it in just a few minutes. I was hanging out with Little White, Struggle Jennings, a lot of major music artists here in Nashville. We were hanging out at Jelly Roll's bar. It was incredible. But before I talk about that, Danny, I want to jump right into the entertainment spotlight. And I want to mention how proud of you I am. You just got followed by Rocky.
Listen, I got followed by my hero. Listen, Pete, my whole life, this movie has inspired me my entire life. And it was Rocky 1, Pete, because Rocky 1, he didn't win. It was about going the distance. That was his success. It wasn't about winning. It had nothing to do with winning. He was fighting himself in that match. And that's why I always loved that movie. And he inspired me my whole life. For him to follow me, Pete, I couldn't fucking believe it.
Congratulations, brother. Sylvester Stallone is such a great man. I worked with him on 2 different movies. I worked with him first on Escape Plan 2, Hades. That's the Escape trilogy. Part 1 was with Sylvester Stallone and Schwarzenegger. And then I went with Sly on a movie called The Samaritan that's on Amazon Prime. Obviously, a great movie also. But, Danny, I wanted to know, for everyone just tuning in, Danny Miner just got followed by Sylvester Stallone, the legend, on Instagram. He only follows 79 people on Instagram. So, Danny, how does that make you feel knowing you're followed by one of our heroes?
Listen, this is what happened, Pete. All I'm doing is I'm on Instagram. I'm getting ready to post a video. And you know how it comes up, people you may know, people you may want to follow. I look up, I see Sylvester Stallone, and it says, follow back. I thought, what? Follow back? That means he's following me. If I have to follow him back. And then I looked, and yes, it was like The Rock and Danny Miner. Like he was following The Rock and Danny Miner. I thought, what made this man follow me? He must think, you know what he did? He looked, he said, a crazy Italian. He's a crazy fucking Italian. He screams, he yells, I'm going to follow him. That's what I believe.
That's one thing that I thought. I said, is it the Italian connection? Is it the underdog story? Does he love true crime? Whatever it is, thank you, Sylvester Stallone. If you're listening, please join us on the podcast one day. We'd love to have you for an episode anytime you're ready. We'd love to interview Sylvester Stallone.
No, Debbie, it was definitely him. It was his, he's verified. It was his. He had 18.4 million followers. Yeah. 100% it was him. And then also this week, Pete, well, we talked about it last week, but basically 2 celebrities in a week. I had the girl from White Lotus. What's her name again? I can't think of her name. Jennifer
Coolidge, right?
Coolidge, yeah. So we had Jennifer Coolidge. I had Rocky this week. And listen, guys, Don Lemon follows me from CNN, okay? Wow. And I'm very surprised because me and you talked before we came on air. I do go to the right a little bit. I am a Republican, so I was very surprised that Don Lemon is following me. So Don Lemon also follows me. Tom Green, if you guys remember him from MTV, he's another. He comments on my videos. He likes my videos all the time.
I didn't realize Tom Green also. That's amazing. Wow.
Yes, on TikTok. Tom Green's the TikTok one. And the girl from the Pussycat Dolls also, she likes the lead singer from the Pussycat Dolls. So yeah, I've had celebrities.
Congratulations. And yes, Debbie, to answer your question, I checked because there are a lot of fan pages, a lot of scam sites. The real Sylvester Stallone with his 18.9 million followers or whatever he has, blue check verified, is following Danny Miner on Instagram right now. So that means there's a great chance he's listening. So again, Sly, please come on the podcast. And Danny, while we're talking about Sly, I'm going to tell you my favorite Sylvester Stallone movie. I want to ask yours. I'd say my favorite Sylvester Stallone movie of all time, I've got to say, and this might be a little bit out there, but man, there's honestly a couple. So I'm going to say a couple. Of course, the Rocky franchise. Rocky 4 is my favorite Rocky personally. And then there's 2 other movies that I just absolutely love. Over the Top, where he plays a truck driver arm wrestler. and Tango and Cash, where him and Kurt Russell are cops.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie. Yes, I do remember that movie, Tango and Cash. Yes. And
Yes.
do you remember Rocky in a movie called? Did you say Over the Top?
Over the Top, yes, where he's arm wrestling.
Yes, he arm wrestled. It was like a Rocky but arm wrestling.
Yeah. So Dan, you have a number one favorite Sylvester Stallone movie of all time?
My favorite is Rocky. I mean, the original Rocky is my favorite forever, Pete. And
Yeah.
Pete, I want you to. I met him before. I met him when I was like 10 years old. We were on a school trip in Philadelphia for the summer, your last summer school trip before the summer vacation. We go to Philadelphia and we went to like the museums and all that stuff. We went to see the Liberty Bell, all that stuff. And we all said, could we stop at the Rocky Steps? I kid you not. We stopped at the Rocky Steps and they were dedicating the statue to Sylvester Stallone that day. And I got to see Sylvester Stallone by a miracle. Him, Mickey, Mr. T, I seen them all.
Danny, maybe that's why he followed you. Maybe he remembers little kid Danny and he says, hey, this guy's grown up. Let me follow him now.
Maybe he wants me for the Tulsa King. I could see me on the Tulsa King. I could say it, Pete.
Absolutely. They filmed it in Atlanta. I got a casting call for it in Gainesville, Georgia, to do a courthouse scene, but I was actually in Las Vegas, and then I got pulled to work with Mr. Beast in Toronto. Shout out to Mr. Beast, by the way.
Hey, just real quick, Pete, on Instagram, people are congratulating me and everything. Thank you. Thank you. We also got a question on Instagram. They said, what is your podcast all about? We want to know for people that are new. We do true crime here. We're going to do the Idaho Moscow case today. This is our second podcast about that. We're going to get into it right away here. But before we get into it, Pete has his spotlight. And wait, before we get to the spotlight, Pete may have wrote us a song. Did Pete write us a song? We might have a song for our podcast. Now, it's in the rough details right now, but soon to be the Minor Details podcast song. Are we ready, Pete? Does everybody want to hear Pete sing? Because I'm ready to hear Pete sing.
Uh-oh. Okay, Danny, I guess the cat's out of the bag. Ding,
you got to do it.
Angela's ringing the bell. So I'll be honest, Danny, I started working on this song as soon as I got the news about Sylvester Stallone following you. I was so excited. That was about 2:30 in the morning for me. I literally sleep. So I immediately found an instrumental production and I started working on the theme song for Minor Details. So if you all are ready, this is a concept. It's not complete yet, but I'm going to give everyone here an exclusive.
Pete, people on Instagram are saying, let's sing. We got a good group on Instagram. They're all pumped up. Let's do this.
Cool. So everyone bear with me. Give me just a second. And we're going to jump into Minor Details theme song for about 30 seconds.
30 seconds.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, let's feel the vibe. Here we go. Unsolved Mysteries vibe. Here we go. Yeah, Minor Details. Here we go. Woo! Yeah. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Unravel the truth. It's in the minor details, evidence and proof. What's the story that the scene tells? This is for humanity. We witness in these tragedies. Pete and Danny stand up for the victims and the families. Unravel the truth. It's in the minor details, evidence and proof. What's the story that the scene tells? This is for humanity. Witness in these tragedies. Pete and Danny stand up for the victims and the families. Raise a clutch fist. We want justice for Kaylee Anthony. Loss of loved ones causes flushes of daily agony. Big Pete and the crime solver get the work in. Put the word out till we find the missing person. Voices of the fallen keep on calling from beyond the grave. Mothers and the fathers trying to get their sons and daughters saved.
Let's go, baby! People are on Instagram saying, fire, 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 fire. Let's go, baby!
That's a preview. That's a rough draft, but that's going to be a concept of what the Minor Details theme song might be. If you guys like it, let us know in the concept. Let us know in the comments, I mean.
All right, guys. We're going to get into the Idaho case, the 911 calls, the text messages. But, Pete, before we get into that, do you want to say anything else? Do you have anything else to say before we get into the case?
Yeah, absolutely, Danny. This case is so exhaustive. We could literally be talking about this Idaho case for episodes upon episodes. For all of our new listeners and viewers, first of all, thank you all. Please leave us a review when you're listening. Please follow, like, subscribe on all platforms, and go back and listen to our first Idaho Moscow case. We talked about initially what happened. We're now going to dive more into the text messages and 911 calls and other details. But really quick, I want to do a weekly highlight. You asked me about my week at the beginning of the show, and Danny, I mentioned the greatest nights of my life last night. It was just insane. I was hanging out with some rap, hip hop, and country music legends. We were over at Jelly Roll's Bar. We were hanging out with Struggle Jennings, Caitlin Curtis, an artist named Clever, who's amazing. We were hanging out with I mentioned Little White earlier. And Danny, it's crazy. I didn't realize this. A lot of these celebrities, they're following me on Instagram, on social media. They're actually fans of the Minor Details already.
Let's go, baby.
Yeah. So I know a lot of the viewers may or may not, if you're not rapper, hip hop, or country fans, you may or may not know some of those names. A lot of these artists are kind of up and coming, but these are still pretty big, successful artists who a lot of thousands, if not millions of people know of, and they are now listening to us. So we want to thank you. Thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for listening. So that was what my week was like. My day was yesterday was just insane. Danny, did you want to mention anything else in the weekly highlight?
Yeah, one more thing, Pete. I got a couple things. One thing, South Africa has now downloaded our podcast. So that's another country added to our podcast. We got downloads in South Africa. We're in 6 different countries, 33 cities right now. Pete, it's constant. We have downloads every night. Everybody's really getting into this podcast. I had a good week, Pete. Listen, 3 weeks ago, I was at 400,000 followers on TikTok. I will probably hit 420,000 today. So I am up 20,000 followers in the last 3 weeks. On Instagram, I went from 50,000 to 56,000 in 2 weeks. So I'm up 6,000 followers on Instagram. So things are rolling along, Pete. And why we do this, and people ask what our podcast is. Why we do this is we want to be the voice for the victims. We want to keep these cases in the spotlight. And that's why we do this. If you don't keep these cases in the spotlight, guess what? They get out of the spotlight and people forget about them. If you make a noise, you're going to hear about the case more. So we got to make noise about cases, and this Idaho case is one of them.
Absolutely, Danny. And I just want to mention one more thing in the weekly highlight. That's exactly what we're all about. Every single day, you and I both being in the public eye and doing these podcasts, we get a lot of love, which we greatly appreciate, but there's also some hate. There's also some opposition, some naysayers. Earlier this week, I got a message from someone saying, stop trying to be famous. Stop trying to chase fame. And I was just like, whoa, I'm not really trying to do that. It's just a natural outcome of what my purpose in life is. My purpose is to have a platform to inspire and uplift people. I'm actually coming to you live from the Path to Success studios. That's my book, Path to Success. And I'm all about uplifting people, motivating people. But I really believe in what you do, Danny. That's why I'm your co-host, because I want us to help find these missing people, like I say in the theme song. I want us to help solve these cold cases. I want to help bring justice to the families that deserve it.
Exactly. And, before we get into this case, Pete, me and you talked off air. There is, what do you call it, an epidemic, okay, of school teachers sexually assaulting kids. And folks, we wanted to talk about this before we get into the Idaho case just for 2 minutes. Mostly, it's women teachers. Pete, it's insane. The women teachers that are doing this. I just did a video where the teacher told the kid, basically they had a quickie, and she said, oh my God, even though it was a quickie, it was still very good. And I'm thinking, this is a 15-year-old kid. This is a school teacher. She's having an affair with a 15-year-old boy. And Pete, it's the norm now. Pete, I must have did 30 videos with female teachers basically having sex with their students. And I don't know if you saw the one I did the other day. She basically had sex with all the students and made them wear screen masks. They put screen masks on, and she basically had sex with like multiple male students. It's totally insane what's going on in her schools. Insane.
That's actually kind of ironic. Last night when I was at Jelly Roll's bar, after Little White told me that he was listening to the Minor Details podcast and that he was aware of us and a fan, he actually pulled it up on his phone. He said, hey, look at this teacher sleeping with the guys in the screen mask. He's like, did you see this case yet? And so people are hearing about this. As one of our commenters says, so disgusting. Of course, we absolutely stand against abuse. We absolutely stand against these heinous acts, and especially violence, and especially people being deprived of their rights and taken advantage of. So it's kind of crazy that this is an epidemic, though.
Pete, it's insane. Now, listen, I'm going to tell you this, okay? And I don't want anybody to get mad at me, but when I grew up, my teachers didn't look like these teachers. I think it's because I went to Catholic school. No way did I want to have sex with my Catholic school teachers. They were like 80, and they were dressed like penguins. All right? They were nuns.
Wow, Danny. Wow. I guess time Angela. I see Angela down in the comments saying, free the Menendez. We'll mention, because we have a lot of people that are very opinionated about that. We did our Menendez episode recently, and we will be talking more about the Menendez brothers as that case develops. However, today we're talking all about the Idaho case. And Danny,
Right.
without further ado, are you ready to jump right in? Do we want to rehash the case just a little bit?
Yeah, especially to our Instagram viewers because they're asking for it. Basically, the Idaho 4 case happened a couple years ago on November 13th. He
Yes.
unalived 4 college students, allegedly, at like
Allegedly.
4 a.m. in the morning on November 13th. The thing that really made this case stand out, you're talking about 4 kids, right? 3 girls, 1 guy that happened to be at the house that night. So
Yes.
it brings out to, every parent's heart. They take their kid to college, they think they're going to be safe, and here their kids are murdered to basically, to me, a guy that would have ended up being a serial killer. I think if he got away with this, Pete, he would have ended up being a serial killer. I truly believe that. And we're going to talk about the evidence that was released just today. Before we got on air, there was evidence released just today. And when we get into it, I'm going to tell you how fucking scary this guy was, because that's what he was, fucking scary. But the problem with this case is the surviving roommates. It took them hours to call the police. And we're not talking hours, we're talking 10 hours, 9 hours, okay? And they seen him and they didn't call the police and they waited. So the 911 tapes, the text messages were released, and that's what we're going to dive into. So Pete, you prepared for this even more than me. You want to start with the text message 911, you tell me what you want to go over first.
Yeah, Danny, we'll go over one and then the other. I think we will start with the text messages first, then the call, because the text messages happened chronologically first. So just to rehash quickly, there might be a couple people in here who don't know the full case. Please go back to our previous podcast episode. I just want to give a quick our sponsor and all potential future sponsors. If you're interested in sponsoring the show, please let us know so we can bring these messages to more people. But Danny, you mentioned something really quick that I want to touch on. You said that you believe if Bryan was not arrested, you believe he would have been a serial killer.
I truly believe that, Pete. And for the evidence, I didn't want to get into it, but I will get into it a little bit. There was evidence released today, Pete, that when he got home from these killings, this motherfucker took a picture of himself celebrating like this. Took a picture at in the early morning hours like this. And who was he doing it for? He was doing it for himself, Pete. He was doing it. That's how sick this guy is. He's so sick that he celebrated to himself that he murdered these 4 kids in the prime of their life. And Pete, what aggravates me more than ever, there are brain dead people in this world that believe this man's not guilty. And they're hurting the families by saying it. Like, how could you think this man's not guilty? They got him purchasing the weapon 8 months ago on Amazon. They caught him. He was purchasing the weapon. He got the fucking weapon. Okay? He's got the weapon, his DNA. How do you think this man's not guilty? Pete, honestly, mental health in this country is bad. There are some weak-minded people in this country that think this man's not guilty because they're weak-minded and they don't trust the government, they don't trust authorities, and we have a problem in the United States. I'm telling you, we do.
Absolutely, Danny. I think we have a problem in the whole world, but it's particularly bad here in the USA. So we do need to get mental help for people who need it. We do need to address these issues. This photo was taken, this selfie was taken. It appears to be in a bathroom. I see tile and what looks like a shower bar behind Bryan. I was looking at the picture today. Apparently, according to investigators, this was taken 6 hours after the unaliving took place. So the unalivings of the 4 students took place between 4 and 4:25 a.m. Approximately 10:30 a.m., Kohberger snapped a selfie of himself giving the thumbs up. Why would he do that if he was not the culprit, if he was not the person who committed this?
Exactly. And we got questions here. I'm looking on Instagram. Sorry here. He said he looked casket ready in the photo. Must have been blood drained from his face. And it's true. He looks pale in the photo. He looks weird in the photo. We actually look skinny. And Kohberger's a big dude. You know what I mean? He's a big dude. But this guy just on TikTok, I mean on Instagram right now, hit it right on the head. He looked casket ready. Blood drained from his face. I gotta agree. He did look like that. He did look like somebody that just committed 4 murders. He did.
So, Danny, something else that I'm noticing as I'm looking at his appearance, his hair looks a bit damp and possibly combed back as if he just was freshly out of the shower and put on a fresh change of clothes. Now, could he have just randomly taken a shower? Of course he could have, but let's look at where the evidence is pointing. What is the story of the scene tale, as I say in the theme song?
Yeah, and Angela brought up a good point here. Let me put her question up here.
Okay, great.
No shower curtain because he used that. And I don't know if you know this, Pete. The shower curtain was missing when the cops did the search warrant on his house. So he threw the shower curtain out. I mean, listen, it's all there. It's all there. The only way this man gets off if you put one of these brain dead people from TikTok on there that believe every conspiracy in the world. If you put one of them brain dead people on the jury, then he's going to be found not guilty because we have a mental health problem in this country. People are nuts. Honestly, they're nuts. So hopefully we can get them out of the jury and this man can be convicted.
Yeah, Danny, this picture is very suspicious, and this was just released. Was it today or was it this week?
It was today.
Just now. So this is
Yeah, it was just now. And Angela brought up another good point. Her son's autistic. He's 5. He does takes pictures of himself a lot. And I don't know if you know this, Pete. They are saying that he is autistic. That's what the defense is coming out to say. Now they're saying he's on the spectrum. That there's all kind of spectrums. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I guess they're going to tell us during trial what spectrum he's on. But they are trying to get the death penalty put away and off the table because he's autistic.
That's interesting. I did see another viewer, it looks like in our YouTube chat, says that an autistic child would not take their own picture in their opinion. So I don't know. Is he really?
Right.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Let's talk about what we do know, which is the picture coming out, and the fact that the picture was taken at 10:30 a.m. that morning. The shower curtain. That's a big piece that I've been looking at this picture for several hours, Danny. I didn't even realize the shower curtain was missing. Where did the shower curtain go?
Right. He took it. And we got another. Instagram's on fire today. Sorry, Pete. But
Perfect.
they put up, Danny, would he have done, would they have done forensics on the drains? 100% they would have done forensics. What they do, Pete, is they'll take them drains out from the bathtub, from the toilet, everywhere to try to see if there's blood or anything in them drains, the sink. And I'm sure that's what he used. I'm sure of it.
That's very interesting. I see Angela also is saying that he probably rinsed himself off in a lake, river, or a pond, and there's no gloves. And Debbie says, and Debbie believes that's where the knife might be, is in the bottom of a river somewhere. So it's very shocking that this happened. And as we're uncovering it, I believe that most rational people would say, yes, the evidence is clearly pointing to him at this current time.
Yeah, and Pete, I don't know if anybody else knows this. I don't know if our followers know this. He went back the next day to the scene to see if the cops were there yet, but they weren't because these roommates didn't call the police. I mean, they didn't call the police till just off the top of my head, I can't remember. I could Google it. I think it was like noon, 11 o'clock. I mean, it was crazy how long it took them to call the police. Insane.
Yes, absolutely, Danny. And we'll talk about the call. I wrote the full transcript. I listened to that 911 call about 10 times as I was preparing and researching for today's episode. So I'd like to talk about the call in a few minutes. Before we talk about the call, Danny, let's just jump right into the text messages. Are you ready to talk about the text messages that Dylan and Bethany, the 2 surviving roommates, were texting back and forth to each other?
Yeah, go over the text messages. Read them. Do you have them in front of you, Pete?
I do. I have everyone right here. Yes.
Let's read them and we'll all critique them together. Let's do that. And I'm sorry, I'm getting too close to my mic.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No worries. And again, thank you all for tuning in. If you're just joining, we're talking about the Idaho case. We're talking about the text messages and the 911 calls. So from 4:22 a.m. until 4:24 a.m., Dylan and Bethany text back and forth. First text message, Dylan to Bethany. No one is answering. Dylan to Bethany. I'm really confused right now. So they're starting off with a very strange beginning initial text message thread. No one is answering. What do you mean? So in other words, you're contacting your roommates and they're not answering?
Yeah. And so you got to say to yourself, why is she contacting the roommates? Okay. Yeah. Why is she at that point did she already see Kohberger at that time? You know what I mean? And that she's trying to see where the roommates are and not responding. So only one roommate responds to her.
Yes, absolutely. So then Dylan texts to Kaylee. Kaylee, Dylan to Kaylee again. What's going on? No response. So then Bethany responds to Dylan. Yeah, dude, WTF. Bethany again to Dylan. Xana was wearing on black. So let's just talk about that. Xana was wearing all black. So why is she saying that? I'm just curious. What is she saying that she would have not been seen wearing all black, or what's the insinuation there?
Pete, I don't know. I read that text messages so many times. That's one thing that bothers me. Why is she saying that she wears all black? I don't get that. Did she think she saw her and not him? Do you know what I mean? I don't know. That's a weird comment, and I don't know if we're going to know until trial. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that maybe that's what they were referring to, because a masked man was seen, someone, apparently a dark figure, was seen in the house. And are
Right.
they saying that maybe they thought that might have been one of their roommates, Xana, because Xana was wearing all black, but
That's what I think.
they're trying to figure out, well, why are they not answering? So to continue on, then Dylan to Bethany, I'm freaking out, RN. I'm freaking out right now. Then Dylan to Bethany again. No, it's like a ski mask almost. Whoa, whoa. It's like a
Right. Listen, if I seen somebody with a ski mask in my house, I surely wouldn't be texting somebody and saying, "Yo, I think I seen a ski mask guy in the house," right? I surely wouldn't be doing that. I'd be calling 911 if I saw somebody in my house with a ski mask on. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. I think that's a normal and logical and rational response by almost anyone. I don't know who could just see a person with a ski mask in their home and then go back to sleep. Now, these text messages continue from Bethany to Dylan. Bethany says, STFU. Then Bethany says, actually. Dylan then responds like he had something over his forehead and little and mouth. So obviously in these text messages, they're probably texting very quickly. They have a couple grammatical errors in here. Then
Right.
Dylan, I'm not kidding. I am so freaked out. So these guys are freaked out at 4:20 in the morning, but they're freaked out and all they're doing is texting back and forth. They're not checking on the roommates. They're not calling 911. They both have their phones in their hands, apparently in
Right.
their rooms, in their separate corresponding bedrooms, right?
Right. And now, Pete, a lot of people brought this up. Like, we're talking about two girls now. Okay. So if it was two boys, they might go check and see what the hell's going on. But you got to realize it is two girls. Sometimes, we got to give them that. You know what I mean? That it is two young girls, two 20-some girls. They're probably scared. Do they approach this guy? Do they go out in the hall with this guy with a mask on? Probably not. You know what I mean? So if they were dudes, they probably do. But the girls, no. That's my feeling.
So the texts continue after I'm not kidding. I'm so freak out. Bethany
Right.
to so am I. Dylan to Bethany, my phone is going to die. And then the final three text messages are all from Bethany. Come to my room, run down here. Those are the final three text messages that were finally concluded at 4:24 a.m.
Right. And you know what? Here's the thing, Pete. If this comes out that they hid in her room and they barricaded the door and they did all this stuff, then I could understand. But still, even if you barricade the door and you do whatever you got to do, why wouldn't you call the police and say, "We don't know what's going on, but there was a man in our house. Our roommates are not responding." Listen, when your roommates are not responding, there's something wrong. Okay, there's something wrong. I will never understand why they didn't call the police. I just won't. I just don't get it.
No, Danny. And as we dive into this and then get to the 911 call in just a few moments, we're going to actually see how suspicious the 911 call is when it finally did come in. But before we get to that, I just want to go over anything else about these texts. I see the comments are kind of flooding in here on YouTube, so I
Yeah,
apologize for all of them, as well as Instagram. So, Danny,
right.
if you go over the most prevalent comments, I see a lot of people have opinions on this, but automatically, I think we can all agree something's going on, something fishy, something strange is going on when they're texting this back and forth and not addressing the issue, but just communicating between themselves about it.
Yeah. And listen, a lot of people brought this up, Pete, about them waiting 10 hours or 8 hours or 9 hours to call the police until they woke up in the morning.
Yes.
I think the girls are bringing up in the comments here, and I kind of agree with this. Were
Uh-huh.
they covering up another crime? Like, was there drugs in the house? And they thought, oh my God, if we call the cops are going to arrest us for drugs. You know what I mean? Was there marijuana or who the hell knows what was in the house? But I can tell you, as a cop perspective, I've been on scenes like this, and I advise the victims, I don't care if you have drugs. We're here for a murder. We're here for a rape. We're here for something that's more violent than your drugs. So we don't care about your drugs. We're not going to arrest you for drugs. And I'm sure that's what the cops would have told them. You know what I mean? But they're kids, they're young kids where they thinking, oh my God, there's drugs in the house. We're going to get arrested. And I'm assuming that they were trying to cover up another crime. That's why they didn't call the cops. That's the only explanation I can think of, Pete.
That's really a very good suggestion, and I think that's highly possible. I don't believe that it would have been marijuana alone. I think that now in the world, especially in America, we've gotten to the point where most rational, logical people realize marijuana is not really a harmful substance. It should have never been illegalized in America. I'm an advocate for legalization. I
Me
love
too.
And the legal states, which even our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., has legalized it. And I just want to
legalize it.
Absolutely. I'm a complete of it because, Danny, no one in history has ever smoked marijuana and gone off on a bender and just that I know
crimes,
horrible things, or done that and then gone out and murdered people in their car like alcohol, which is legal. But anyway,
right.
I just want to elaborate on that to say that it still could be drugs. They could be covering up some drugs, but Debbie has exactly, she's already saying where I'm going. She believes there were harder drugs like cocaine. It could have been something else. Who knows? But yes, was there a cover up? I believe that when you're listening to the 911 call, if you're like me and you really listen to vocal inflections and vocal tones, which I know that they're going to do in court, I think that it's very obvious that there's some acting going on in this 911 call, as we're going to talk about in a moment.
Yeah, I mean, that 911 call was just, oh my God. I mean, I just I couldn't believe it when I listened to it. What about you, Pete?
Danny, I'll be honest, the 911 call, it bothered me a lot. First of all, it just bothered me and I didn't want to listen to it again, but I had to keep listening to it for this episode so we can get the word out to the viewers and the listeners, because again, we want to do whatever we can to help crack this case, to help bring justice to the victims. I know we're not going to single-handedly do it, probably. However, with all of us together in the true crime community, there's no telling what powerful force we can become.
Yeah. Now, Debbie, see, some people said this. They seemed like the girls were pretty calm in the 911. Do you agree with that? Yeah, they were, kind of.
They were kind of calm, Danny, with the exception of the very beginning. So let's just go ahead and talk about the very beginning of the 911 call, since we're bringing it much. So the 911 call came from inside the house at 11:58 a.m. And the coroners and the forensic department, the medical examiners, have determined that the deaths of these 4 students took place between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m. So, Danny, that's a period of time of 8 hours approximately. 8 hours. Why, in God's name, why on earth would it take 8 hours to call 911 and to report this? And before we even talk about the call, how many people were in and out of the house this morning? That's something that I think is undetermined. There were a lot of people other than Dylan and Bethany who were in that house that morning.
It's insane. Like, you know, and one of our followers there brought it up. There had to be blood everywhere, right, Pete? So you're talking about blood everywhere. I don't get this at all. I mean, if you stab somebody, guys, I hate to say this, I don't want to be graphic, but there's going to be fucking blood. And Pete, I don't know if you remember when this case first came out, there was blood dripping out of the house. They had pictures of blood dripping out of the house. So how did these kids not call the cops? That's the only thing I could think of. They were covering up another crime. That's the only thing I could think of, because it's the only thing that makes common sense. You know?
Yes, Danny. And as one of our viewers, Sprinkles, just commented. Sorry,
I like the name Sprinkles. I'm thinking of cupcakes every time I put their comment.
Yeah, I like our listeners. Sprinkle just commented. Yeah. They know more, and they were not part of Kohberger. So that's kind of my opinion at this point, given the evidence and given what I've seen. I still do believe that the evidence does point to Bryan as the guilty party. However, I think that these roommates are guilty of something, whether it's covering up something or whether it's being shady. I think there's no doubt. I think there's a 0% chance that they did not know that their roommates were murdered long before they made this call. Long before.
I agree. I think they knew their roommates were murdered too. I hate to say that, guys. How do you go to bed? How do you lay in your bed and go to sleep? Like, yeah. I can't wait to hear what they have to say on the stand. I really can't. Because there's got to be an explanation. There has to be. Because this don't make no sense at all.
Yeah, Danny. And in the future, I think it would be very helpful for the viewers and for us. As we're going through these episodes, we can actually put out some of this content on the screen and we can actually play the calls live. But for right now, I just went through and I just copied the transcript. I listened to the call, like I said, 10 times to make sure that I had it correct. So let's just start off with the call. The 911 call, operator answers. Hello, this is 911. A female voice starts with saying, "Hi, something is happening. Something has happened in our house. We don't know what." And she's very frantic. Her voice sounds, in my opinion, and my career is usually entertainment, rap, inspiration. I've been on 107 movies and TV shows, so I know acting fairly well. My opinion is that this caller is acting in her first two sentences. She's very exaggerated, with an exaggerated sense of crying, an exaggerated sense of emotion. It's kind of like, "Hi, something is happening." And to me, it's a fabricated emotional content that she's putting in.
This is what I would have said. "Holy fuck, my roommates were murdered. Please get her as quick as you can. My roommates were stabbed. They were murdered." How do you fucking say we don't know what happened? How? I'll never understand this. I'm telling you, I'll never understand it. And I'm with you, Pete. And to my followers out there, I believe Kohberger has nothing to do with these two girls. I just think these two girls, I don't know where their heads were. Were they high? Were they drunk that night? They didn't know what the hell they were doing. Something's wrong. Something's wrong.
Absolutely. And this call starts off so suspicious with this, in my opinion, embellished sense of emotional vocal inflection. Now, McBlue just says stoned. Could they have been stoned? Absolutely. Could they have been drunk? Absolutely. However, if they were getting drunk,
we will be at the after party tonight anyway. So,
hey, all I know, TikTok live after party. It's a little more wild and crazy than our podcast.
Yeah. The after party, we might be a little high during the after party. Come and see us high at the after party.
Let's break it down, Danny. And
okay.
I want to know, obviously, we all want to know what's going on. Everyone listening today, you and I both, we are seriously interested in this. We want to know what's happening. The 911 call operator immediately says, "What's your address?" The address is given after the first female caller says, "Something has happened in our house. We don't know what." Now, like you said, Danny, when you mentioned what you would do if you made the 911 call, that sounds realistic. I believe you. I've had to make 911 calls a couple times in my life. One example was I was driving down I-85 South in Atlanta. I pulled up on a 7-car pileup and one boat. There were bodies in the middle of the interstate, Danny. I literally had to get out of my car, use my blankets, put them over survivors. Their pants were ripped off from road rage. I called 911 and I told them the facts immediately. I told them the facts coherently, but I was also emotionally charged.
Right. Now, how could you not be?
Exactly. I was not high, drunk, or stoned or anything like that, but my emotions were running high. However, it wasn't this it wasn't this almost like sense of crying. Like that's how the caller first greets the 911 operator, almost as if she's crying in tears. But to me, again, it sounds like she's faking it. It sounds like she's trying to make herself cry for this initial statement.
Yeah, I listen. I listened to it just like you did, Pete, and it's so strange. I just don't get it. Now, I listened to Kaylee's father, Steve. He's been the most outspoken parent, okay, and he felt the girls were scared. He did stick up for them a little bit. I watched him on News Nation, and he felt the girls were scared. I do feel bad for these girls, and I say this a lot, and people probably sick of hearing me say it, but Pete, they're gonna get terrified. I mean, they're going to get teared apart on the stand. These defense attorneys are going to tear them apart. You didn't see blood. You saw a guy with bushy eyebrows. Your roommates aren't answering the phone and you don't call the police. Boy, that's strange. Why wouldn't you call the police? These defense attorneys are going to rip these girls apart. They're going to be on the stand for 2 days. Each one of them. I guarantee you they're going to be on the stand for 2 days.
As I think they should. And Debbie had a good comment as well. Debbie said that she saw her daughter last year fall and hit her head. She called 911 and she could barely talk. She was frantic. When you're in an emotionally charged state, I understand. However, I bet that call from Debbie was a lot more realistic and believable than what I heard here. Let's continue with this call, Danny. The 911 asks what the address is given, and then the phone is passed to a neighbor. Okay? This is not even someone that lives in the house. The 911 operator again asks, "I need the address to be stated, please. What's the address?" So the address is restated. And then the statement from the neighbor is one of the roommates is passed out and she was drunk last night and she is not waking up. Oh, and they saw someone in their house last night. Let's stop right there and talk about that whole statement.
Pete,
Let's like
she was passed out. This girl was stabbed brutally and murdered. Okay. I heard how bad these kids were stabbed. I heard that one of them, I hate to be graphic, but I heard almost their head was removed. That's how bad these kids were stabbed. How could you say my roommate is not responding? Like, come on. Come on. This is some kind of bullshit. It is. It's bullshit. Let's call it what it is. There's no way they didn't see these roommates. There's no way.
I agree, Danny. Absolutely no way. I'm calling it out. And Danny, I laughed earlier. I scoffed because this is so outrageous. I'm laughing at the 911 call. I just want to remind all the viewers out there that we are highly sensitive to the victims and their families. And we absolutely know that this is a serious matter. That's why we're doing everything we can to bring awareness to this. But it's just so laughable. It's because it's ridiculous. This is like something out of a Hollywood script. This should not be a real call that we're really listening to. However, it goes on. So the operator says at that point, and by the way, really quickly, the last thing that the roommate, or I'm sorry, the neighbor says is, oh, and they saw someone in their house last night. The operator doesn't address that first. The operator says, stop passing the phone around. What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now? So the 911 operator immediately shuts down this kind of back and forth narrative of, oh, let me tell you what happened 8 hours ago or last night. The 911 operator is doing their job to say, what is the 911 call about right now? What's the urgent need?
Right. And you know what, Pete? I think this house, the cops were called there a lot. They were a party house. I saw videos of the cops responding to the house. They were always very nice to the cops, though. Like I saw the interaction between the girls and the cops every time the cops went there for a loud party or loud music, and there was good interaction. The police respected them. They respected the police. So it wasn't like they were scared of the police either. It's not like, oh my gosh, the police treated us real bad, so we're afraid to call them, because the interaction between the police and them on other calls were good on both sides. So I don't get that. I don't know. I'm trying to think of different answers to this, Pete, because it's confusing.
It really is, Danny. And I try to see all different perspectives. Angela has a comment that she says they were jumping all over the place because they were all traumatized. So I guess one question that I would ask is, why would they be traumatized if their roommate is just passed out?
Right.
I think I agree with Angela, 100%, Angela. I think you're right. They were traumatized. I believe they're traumatized because they knew and they had known for several hours that their 4 roommates were all deceased. This was not, oh, I kind of think something's happening, something's wrong, and I don't know what's going on. That's crap. That's a lie. So the 911 operator says, I need to know what's happening. Is someone passed out right now? The next comment from one of the people, I don't have them identified. The next comment is, I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. And the 911 operator cuts him off and says, okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out? So already, whoever has the phone at that moment is trying to go back to something that happened last night. But why are you trying to explain the narrative of what happened to lead up to this in a 911 call? Isn't it urgent to talk about what's going on right now, the reason for the call?
Yes.
Someone send an ambulance right away, please. Send an ambulance, send the police right away. Isn't that what a normal person would say?
Yes, because they want to know what to send too. 911 needs to know, do we need ambulance? Do we need police? Do we need paramedics? You know, stuff like that. Now,
Yes.
somebody made a comment here, Pete, in the Instagram, and sorry, Instagram, I've been missing your comments.
Yeah.
If someone isn't responding, you go over and you give them a shake and make sure they're okay. Did they do that? Like, Pete, if you stayed over my house and you were drinking too much and I didn't hear from you, I would go in your room and shake you and say, hey, Pete, are you okay? Like, did they do that? Did they say, hey, are you okay?
Absolutely. And we apologize if we're not getting to all these comments. I see them flooding in. I even see a comment on Facebook. Shout out to our viewers out there everywhere. We're going to try to cover these points one at a time. If we don't get to all the points on today's podcast, then we will continue to go into this tonight on the TikTok Live. So let's go with the 911 operator. As crazy as this is, Danny, the call is not over yet. So the operator said, I need to know what's going on if someone is passed out. Can you find that out? And then a female says, yeah, I'll come. Come on, we got to go check, to another person. But we have to. Is she passed out? She's knocked out. What's wrong? She's not waking up. All of that is from the female who has the phone. So is she passed out? Question mark. She's knocked out. What's wrong? Question mark. She's not waking up. So it went from the beginning of the call to saying something's wrong, but I don't know what, to the operator saying, is someone passed out, to a person then responding, I don't know. So that's the first lie that I think that we're catching someone in. We're catching someone in a lie on this 911 call. They already said they know someone's not waking up. And now halfway through the call, they're saying, oh, I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m. ...
I kind of agree with Sprinkles there. And again, I'm getting hungry for cupcakes every time we put his comment up there, or their comment up there. And but I kind of agree. Was it planned out before they made the call? Did they plan out what to say? And listen, Pete, here's the thing, okay? Let me give you a scenario to everybody out there. I'm going to give it to you, Pete. Say me, you, Angela, Debbie, I don't know, your other friend that's always rapping with you. I can't think of his name. Say we're all in a house together, okay? And me and you wake up in the morning and we don't hear from Angela, we don't hear from Debbie or your rapper friend. Wouldn't we go into, say we went into Angela's room and she's not responding? Wouldn't we go check on Debbie and the rapper friend too? Why are they just saying one person? What happened to the other three? Did we forget about them roommates? Did we forget to wake them up? This whole call smells like bullshit. And here's the problem, Pete. I don't think they're involved in the case, but this is going to hurt the case because this could bring reasonable doubt. This could bring reasonable doubt because people could be thinking, this don't make fucking sense. And it doesn't make fucking sense. Am I right?
You're right, Danny. It makes zero sense. And I think that's a great point. Why was it not mentioned in this call at all? Hey, four of my roommates are not waking up. Oh, four of my are drunk. Well, probably because if you open the door to the bedroom and just looked in, which any normal person would do, you're going to see a bloody crime scene. And you're going to see, as you mentioned earlier, not to get too graphic, but you said the one of the heads was almost decapitated of one of the
That's what they said. I read that in one article about 6 months ago, that they said the stabbings were so bad, the one girl was cut so bad here that, her head could have came off. So we're looking at all these stabbings. Oh, my roommate's not responding. Come on now. Come on. This guy brutally stabbed these kids. He brutally murdered them. Okay? You didn't think your roommate was unconscious. No. These girls, I can't even think of why they did this. Well, I can't even think of it.
Well, Danny, as one of our commenters said earlier, I can't see where the comment is, but they said this was definitely planned. This was an orchestrated call. They talked about it before they made this call. I do agree they did talk about it. However, I think they did a terrible job of delivering it. They did a terrible job of getting their facts straight and of even making it believable in any way. Because like you said, there's multiple other roommates. If they had opened the other door to any of their other roommates, they would have seen something going on. Let's go back to the masked man. They allegedly saw a masked man at 4 something in the morning. So something's going on and there's a masked intruder. Oh, one of the roommates thinks it might be Zena, the other roommate, because she was wearing black. Yet it's obvious that the person that you see is wearing a ski mask. So these are all red flags on every level.
Right. And I want to talk about the ski mask because a lot of people on TikTok were saying, well, how did she see the bushy eyebrows if he was wearing a ski mask? We're not talking about the 1980s ski mask here, guys. What they do is they sell them now, not with just the eyes like this. They have it like this whole thing is open, Pete. So your nose is out, your eyes are out, your eyebrows are out. So they have them. It's not the old, the 2-eye things that we used to have in the 80s. You know what I mean? Yeah. So he could have bought that mask anywhere and his eyebrows would have been showing.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we only have 12 minutes left in tonight's show, I want to continue on with this 911 call so we can get through. So the operator, after the last female says, oh, I don't know what's happening. Is she passed out? She's knocked out. What's wrong? She's not waking up. This is the female caller. 911 operator says, okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way. Lots of whimpering and whispering is heard in the background at that point in the call. And you hear someone whisper, do you know where Kaylee is? In a whispered voice. Then you hear a male voice say, get out, get out. Whoa.
What's that? What is that about? Yeah, I don't know.
Get out where and why? Why would you not want to be in the room with your injured or potentially passed out roommate who you're calling for help for? Wouldn't you want to get in the room? Why would you want to get out? That makes no sense to me, Danny. Absolute no sense. And I think we've lost Danny for just a moment, so I'm sure he'll be right back. But the male voice said, "Get out, get out." The operator then says, "How old is she?" So the operator wants to know more details, as a good 911 operator should. How old is she? The female caller then says, "She is 20. Yeah, she's 20. And at that point, a male, the same male voice that we heard earlier, likely saying, "Get out, get out," a male voice comes back to say, "Hello." So again, they're playing phone tag. They're passing this phone back and forth. And Angela has a good point as well. Angela says, "As if the entire room was not covered in blood." Exactly. So that's a very valid point. If the entire room had all the obvious evidence, then of course this 911 call should be very different, which I believe it obviously should
Pete,
be.
I'm back. I'm back.
Welcome back to me. I continued while you were away. Welcome back, though.
Listen, I don't know what happened. I got disconnected. I don't know what the heck went on there.
Hey, it's all good. Angela's trying to give me the show, but no, this is minor details. Danny's back, so we're back in this together. So, Danny, at this point in the call, the operator wanted to know, how old is the victim? The female caller says she is 20. Yes, she's 20. Then a male voice comes on the phone. "Hello." Operator says, "I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people." The male voice says, "Oh, I'm sorry. They just handed me the phone." The operator says, "Is she breathing?" The male voice says, "No." Operator, "I've sent an ambulance and police. Stay on the line. Is there a defibrillator available? If so, go get it now and tell me when you have one." We're almost at the end of the call, Danny, but what do you think?
Right. It's just crazy. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what these kids. Here's the thing: when you call 911, they want to know facts. There's 4 victims. They're all murdered. They're all stab victims. None of them are breathing. Send paramedics. Send police. Send the cavalry. That's
Yes,
what should have been done. Send the
perfect.
fucking cavalry. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's a perfect description of what's going on. You just accurately described what they should have described on the phone. But
Right.
instead, saying, "Oh, I don't know what happened." They're passing the phone back and forth. Why do you pass the phone back and forth? Is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it trauma? Maybe a combination of those. Let's continue. Let's get to the end of this call, and then we'll talk about it for the last few minutes. So the 911 operator says, "Do you have a defibrillator?" And female voice says, "We don't have one." Then female voices again said, "Do you have a defibrillator?" Talking to someone there. You hear a separate male voice saying, "Yes." The 911 operator says, "Are you now talking to the police officer?" The female caller says, "Yes." 911 operator finishes the call saying, "Okay, I'm going to let you go since he is there with you and can help you." The female caller finishes with this, and this is a haunting way to finish it. "Okay, thank you, bye." To me, it's a little haunting. To me, I'm not going to say bye to my 911 operator. Oh, maybe thank you. Okay, thank you so much. I don't know. It's very casual. It went from being very frantic at the beginning. The emotions were so high to all of a sudden, you can tell that at the end of this 911 call, the officers are there on scene. At least one officer has responded, and suddenly the tone has gone way down, Danny. It's suddenly super calm. "Okay, thank you. Bye." Just
Could you
weird.
could you imagine? Listen to this. I'm used to responding to scenes, guys. So I'm going to give you a police perspective. The first police officer on the scene, he's going for an unconscious female. He thinks he's responding to the scene for an unconscious female, and when he gets there, there's 4 people brutally murdered. Could you imagine?
I can't imagine. I'm sure that responding officer was shocked. And Angela just called out a great point that I actually overlooked in my transcript. I forgot to mention it. Angela says that, wasn't it once the police arrived, they said yes, they had a defibrillator. So yes, that's actually true. The male officer, it sounded like the male officer said, "Yes, I have a defibrillator." The operator says, "Are you talking to the officer? The officer, do they have a defibrillator?" And the female caller says, "Yes, they have a defibrillator." So at this point, we know that a first responder has arrived on the scene. They do have a defibrillator. And now the 911 operator says, "Okay, my job's done at this point. The first responder is here. Let me end this call." And it just is very weird because it went from so frantic and, to me, very exaggerated to all of a sudden a very calm ending. And
Right. And Angela's bringing up a good point here. The first police officer arrives is going to be the last one to leave, or do they have to write up the entire report? I would assume. Angela's bringing up a great report. The first police officer on that scene, his responsibility is protecting that crime scene. So he probably got all them kids out of there and he started putting up crime scene tape and put it all around the whole building because that crime scene's going to be big and you don't know how far that crime scene could go. So he was the most important guy in that scene, that first officer.
Okay, thank you for sharing that, Danny. And as a former officer, can you tell us actually what Angela is asking? The rest of her question is, would that first responding officer write up this incident report, or is that going to be left up to the higher ranking detectives or higher?
100% he's writing a report. The detectives are writing a report. He's also writing a report. He is also keeping a log, Pete. What they do is the first officer on that scene, he gets a log. He puts the date, the time, and every person that enters that crime scene, they sign that log. And they put the time they got in and the time they leave that crime scene. So everybody is logged into that crime scene and everybody is logged out of that crime scene. So when the defense says how many people were in that crime scene, 10 people were in that crime scene. It was officer this, detective this, sergeant this, and they were in for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever it was. So he protects the scene and he starts a log of who goes in that crime scene. That's what the first officer does on the scene. Sorry, I got to get a little technical for you guys.
Yeah. No, I absolutely appreciate that. And I know our viewers and our listeners appreciate that because we want to know the details. And Danny, I'll be the first to admit, I'm not an expert. I'm actually a little bit newer to the true crime realm as I met you and started working. But I want everyone to know out there, all of our listeners, that you, Danny Miner, are the crime solver. You are more of the expert. So sometimes on the show, I'm going to ask you things that I don't know. And that brings me to a question right now. Do you know if we have access as public to that police report or to any of these police reports? Do we have access?
Yes. Listen, yes, you do. And I'm going to tell you this, okay? You have access to their dispatch reports. You don't have access to their incident reports. Okay, so the public, I was our information officer too. People would write me letters and lawyers, and I'd send reports out. We were allowed to send dispatch reports, date and time. We were called to the house, a little summary of what happened. But like our investigation is not open to the public. But the paperwork filed at the courthouse, the criminal complaint, the affidavit that came up with the charges, that is public knowledge to anyone. Pete, me and you could go down there and get them reports today. You can get a report on anybody. If they were arrested, you can get their criminal complaint and their affidavit, anybody's. That is public knowledge.
Wow. Okay. Thank you for explaining that. Angela has another great question. She said she wonders how far away the officers were from the house when they noticed the smell. And that's a great question, Angela. I also would like to know, how far away were they from the house when they got the dispatch call? Because they arrived by the end of this 911 call, and this call was only a duration of around 4 minutes. So that leads me to believe they were in a adjacent neighborhood. They were very close. I mean, they responded to this thing very quickly, didn't they?
Yeah, they responded quickly. And you know, in 8 or 9 hours, especially if it wasn't that hot, you're not going to have a ton of smell. Honestly, guys, you know, you're not going. You're going to have rigor mortis already setting in, stuff like that. So rigor mortis, you're talking about their arms will be stiffer. You'll have blue marks. It'll look like they got black and blue marks on them. That's how you can tell they were dead for a long time. You could actually, like, it's basically the blood clothing. You know what I mean? In your skin. So that's how you could tell when somebody's dead. So I don't think there'd be back that much smell, but you could smell blood. I hate to say that. And as an officer, you could smell death. And once you smell death, you can't get that out of your nose, Pete. I hate to get graphic, but once you smell death, you'll smell it for the rest of your life. You can't get it out of your head.
Yeah, I understand, Danny. I've actually.
Yeah, blood does have like a little smell to it. It kind of does, especially like dried blood and stuff, a little bit.
Yeah, I understand. I've actually had
Yeah.
some experience with death myself, Danny. So I definitely understand and agree.
Oh, we lost Pete now. We're losing all of us. We lost you for a minute.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. We have about 2 minutes left, Danny. I want to get to, it looks like one more question from Angela here. Thanks for the compliment, Angela. She said, how far into the case did they add the gag order? So when did that gag order come out, Danny? Do you know?
I believe that gag order just a couple months in, maybe a month in after they arrested him, they put the gag order out because and let me tell you why they put that gag order. They're worried it's a small town, Moscow. You're talking 40,000 people, right? 38,000 people in the whole town, right? So they
Yeah.
were worried about jury tampering where they wouldn't be able to come out with a good jury. But now they sent it to Boise, to a bigger state in Idaho, so that shouldn't be a problem. But basically, that's why the gag order was on. So, so it wouldn't tamper other jurors, basically, with all this information, because it's a high profile case.
Okay, I see, Danny. We are drawing to a close of our episode today, and I just want to say thank you, everyone. Danny, I think we should do a part 3 of this sometime. We'll talk
I
about.
think we have to. I think we have to. And it's our most popular podcast on Spotify right now, too.
Absolutely. And this is not over. And as everyone needs to know, we will be reporting live from Idaho when this trial takes place, Danny.
Yes. And listen, I want to thank everybody, and we're going to get off here in 30 seconds, but everybody come to our after party, 8:30, TikTok live. I think we have 15 spots. You can come up, talk to us. We can talk about the case, and we might have a little cereal.
30 Pacific time. I hope to see you all on TikTok. Thank you for joining in. Thank you, Danny. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to all our listeners.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Good night.
Do the cash walk, do the cash walk. Hey, I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your collar, twist your wrist, do the cash walk. I'm dropping dollars while you're wishing on a scratch off. My hollow mama list, she just hit the jackpot. I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your collar, twist your wrist, do the cash walk. I'm dropping dollars while you're wishing on a scratch off. My hollow mama list, she just hit the jackpot. I'm leaving flaming footprints on the asphalt. Pop your